Greetings survivors and friends, SHADOWFRAX here, and this is a vid that I've wanted to do for a while now about a strange but fascinating modded Rust server called Terminus ReVamped, which you may have seen me playing on recently, and if not then please do check out those vids. Shameless plug. But first of all, I wanted to make it clear that this isn't intended to be a server promotion video before any of you jump to that conclusion. Rather, I'm doing this off of my own back because instead of concentrating on what might not be working with Rust at the moment, and there are many opinions about that, I wanted to highlight a modded setup that seems to be working surprisingly well, and to be honest, one that's given me the most fun I've had in Rust in a very long time. Most importantly though, I want to get to the bottom of why it's so enjoyable, as I think it's relevant to the state of Rust in general. Now, the official Terminus ReVamped server is certainly unique. In fact, it's probably the most unique server that I've ever come across, but we'll get to that in just a moment. The really special thing about it, and one of the main reasons for doing this vid, is that since going live in its current state, coming up to 2 months ago now, most days it's almost always been maxed out, even sometimes on a Thursday before the wipe. And a lot of the time, there's a queue to get in. All of this in an age when so many other Rust servers seem to be dying within a couple of days. And that's not to say that there aren't other servers out there that are successful and maintain a decent population, but I just feel this one has something special about it. I've also left off doing this vid until now because I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just the sheer novelty factor or promotion by YouTubers or streamers that was artificially inflating the population and keeping it going. Anyway, for those of you unfamiliar with the way Terminus is set up, here's how it works. The biggest single deviation from vanilla is that there is no crafting whatsoever. Gone are components, blueprints, and XP. Instead, every item you should need in the game can be found in barrels, crates, or airdrops. That's weapons, tools, clothing, deployables, doors, locks, raiding materials, etc, etc. Once you've found a plan and a hammer, you can build in the normal way, but here's the next big change. You can't gather wood, stone, or ores from trees and nodes. Rather, you have to pick them up off the ground, recycle them from loot you don't need, smelt cans and metal ore for frags, or watch out for one of the regular meteor strikes which leave small piles of resources behind. There's also another way of getting building materials, and this is one aspect of Terminus which I think really makes a massive difference to the longevity of the server. You see, when you loot barrels or crates, you'll also receive scraps as per usual, but instead of turning these into components, which you can't use anyway, you can trade them in for coins on the in-game shop and either exchange them there and then for wood, stone, or frags depending on your needs, or leave them there where they can be redeemed at a later time. Explosives are available but are harder to find, so even though raiding does happen, it's a riskier and more calculated endeavour, and because ammo has to be found rather than crafted, players tend to be more conservative about what they take out with them and indeed use. I might also mention that there's no radiation, no attack chopper, no twig tier or ladder building in cupboard radius, a max group size of 4, a few items such as auto turrets and shotgun traps have been removed from the loot tables, screaming when downed is back, it's always daytime, and it's always foggy. Quite a lot of differences, I'm sure you'll agree. Now, the funny thing is that even though most of what sets this server apart from vanilla is what's actually been taken out of the game rather than what's been added, as I say, it's genuinely the most fun I've had in Rust for a very, very long time, and I've met a lot of other players who feel the same way. Now, I'll give you my thoughts on why this setup works so well in a moment, but first, what I wanted to do was interview some other players, including a couple of fellow YouTubers who've been on the server for a while, and ask them why they enjoy it.
There's a lot of reasons why I enjoy Terminus, from the introduction of what we can do with scrap to buy resources, to the fact that resources are so scarce. They add to the experience and they just make it that much more challenging. Rust is challenging as it is, but it's always nice to have more of a challenge, and that's what Terminus gives me.
Terminus, I mean, like, what I really enjoy about it is that going around looting is actually far more exciting than it is in normal Rust, because barrels, you know, they can have crossbows. You loot a crossbow, you dome somebody in the face, that's exciting. But in the component system, you're just going to get some lame-ass component, and that's not fun.
So my main reason I enjoy playing on Terminus is when my first wipe that I jumped in here, I was a solo player. I was able to get down to base relatively quickly. The scrap system allowed me to get the materials I needed, even though regards with no farming or anything like that.
It's a lot faster paced. Now, I do play on other vanilla servers, and I do enjoy it, but it feels like it just dies off too quick. Everyone gets so bored so quick.
When you're hitting a tree, you're hitting a tree. You know, in a vanilla server, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get wood. But when you're hitting a barrel, you don't know what you're going to get. You could get a semi-rifle, you could get a code lock, you could get a rocket. It's the diversity and kind of like a gamble almost that makes it exciting and fun.
It's the get up and go, you know, the chances of finding a pistol in one of these barrels and taking someone down who's trying to do the same. And
there's more like encounters kind of, because everyone goes by the road. No one's farming, so everyone's by the road or by the rat towns, especially by the recyclers. That's where like everyone goes because they want a base.
The fact that people can't just craft and craft and craft explosives to wipe through my base, giving me a little bit more time to build is nice too. It's not the same grind like, oh, I've got to go cut wood, I've got to go do this. It's, I'm breaking barrels and I never know what I'm gonna get. So I never know how I'm going to have to start. It keeps me on my toes.
Also, another really cool aspect about Terminus that I enjoy is, you know, the fog, you know, what you got in the background. Because, you know, there's roof campers in Rust, but on Terminus, it doesn't seem like there really is any. I haven't encountered any, at least, because they can't see that far.
And to say vanilla, we always see the same kind of base build, a 2x2 or 1x2. But while you see that here as well, you always see unique things like little fences, shop windows. I've seen bases with all shop windows surrounding it, except with like one door. That's pretty cool, and it's something you don't usually see.
I somewhat prefer it from vanilla, and I hate to say that because Rust is a good game, but this gives you much more of a feel of, you know, frantic survival. I've made bases with chain link fences, and you just don't see that.
Yeah, it's the only choice that they have. You know, you're basically making do with what you got, and I like that aspect.
It just gives you that, you know, more survival feel. It's desperate. It's cruel.
And you have to conserve your ammo. That's the biggest part. You have all the guns, but like no ammo. And on normal servers, they have like no guns, but lots of ammo, so you can just craft it.
Being able to right away pull out a scrap metal door or something makes building a base a lot quicker. But like I said, you never know what you're gonna get. So it's kind of a roll of the dice every time on Terminus when it comes to barrels. You roll it and you build with what you get. And that's something that I really do enjoy about it.
I love the coins. Now, I decided to make it my mission to save my coins. So I saved up for a week and I just continually farmed scrap. That was my mission. And then I managed to build a rather impressive base with just that scrap alone.
I have never been a huge fan of the Twig update. I adapted to it as what it was, but it not being here is a huge relief to me personally. I feel like people have to strategize better, kind of work with teammates if they have them, to figure out how they want to do the raids and not just be able to build up, blow into a wall, and jump in.
I think that you're required more to interact with other people. You have people who are offering trade a lot more too on Terminus, whereas in vanilla you can pretty much just craft everything on your own, so you don't really have to talk to your neighbor or anything.
I don't know. With me, they usually don't have a chance to. I usually blast them in the face before they have the opportunity.
It makes it feel so much more alive, so much more tempo in it. You're not stood there over a stove or a furnace waiting for fragments to be crafted. You're not waiting 2 minutes to craft some bullets. You can just go out, get rich, and then come back home, or just die trying.
Yeah, kind of how like a survival world would be. You know, beggars can be choosers, you know, you make do with what you have, where in the normal Rust, you have the choice to make exactly what you want.
Here, when you finally get an AK, it means so much more because you hardly ever find them. And then there's the ammo aspect too, because even though you have that AK, most likely you don't have very much 5.56, so you want to strategically use it. So you don't want to be running around with it all the time. You'll only want to pull it out, like, say, if you're being raided or if you have a large group of people camping your door.
Come on, I thought I had something good, but I don't know. Yay!
Ow!
I mean, I'll go back and play vanilla, sure, but it's not going to be my first choice because I found Terminus.
So I think the main factor that I got out of this is that friendship or death is the main thing. You really got to focus on that.
Well, I like the barrels. I like hitting barrels, and it's, well... Sorry, can we do that again?
So, analysis time. Why does this server seem to be so popular, and what does it tell us about Rust? Well, firstly, I think it shows that completely removing crafting, although a bold move, can strangely enough work very well in Rust. Because there's a chance to find virtually anything in loot, the grind seems to have been removed, and the acquisition of new items shifts from a mainly indoor activity to a completely outdoor one. Players are forced to roam more, which greatly increases interaction. Recycling also becomes a more essential part of the process, again forcing players to regularly visit certain hotspots. Chance is a big factor too, and all players are on an equal level when it comes to the items they could potentially find at a moment's notice. Being unable to craft means the value of everything increases, and the idea that something really rare and awesome could be found in the next barrel or crate means that the compulsion to keep looting is strong. This is what I call the one more barrel factor, and something which sadly is missing from vanilla right now. Secondly, I think being able to swap scrap for coins on the in-game shop is essential to this server's longevity. You see, the balance you build up there is untouchable by others, and even carries over after a normal wipe, meaning that the more you save up, the easier it is to build a new base, and even if you do get raided, you don't have to start over from absolute scratch. Instead, you're only a few items away from having somewhere to live again. Of course, these savings can only be redeemed for building materials, they disappear in a forced wipe so it doesn't get to ridiculous levels, and there's an incentive to eventually use them up. Unlike with blueprints or XP, there's no end game here where farming becomes pointless. Having the equivalent of a resources bank account gives players a reason to continue collecting scraps and saving them up for the next fresh start. This gives them a sense of investment and a reason to keep playing, but most importantly, it gives them a reason to keep playing on the same server, which helps to explain why the population remains consistently high even just before a wipe. It also shows that investment in a server can exist perfectly well in the complete absence of a conventional progression system. A few other things I've noticed here are that because resources are so scarce and a lot of the time you have to make do with what you find, bases in general tend to be much smaller and more inventive. Code locks are relatively rare, for instance, and these restrictions, instead of being a pain in the arse, actually mean that you have to think on your feet and be clever rather than rely on layers of honeycombing to secure your base. Another thing that's interesting to note is that thanks to the ever-present fog, the feeling of tension is higher, but at the same time decreasing the visibility means that roof camping here is virtually non-existent. And on a personal note, I've found that in general there's more interaction and trade, although I'm not saying that's going to be everybody's experience. Now, as I said at the beginning, I'm not going to concentrate on what might not be working in Rust at the moment, but I can't help being fascinated with this one server that with a bold and different approach seems to have solved at least some of the big problems that the game currently faces. So I'm just going to say, maybe we can learn some valuable lessons here. Of course, all of this is just my analysis, and I'm not expecting everyone to agree with me or indeed find this type of server enjoyable, but why not leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think to these ideas, especially if you've ever played on Terminus. I'd also just like to take this opportunity to thank Dean Central, who originally concepted the server, and Cranksy for implementing and maintaining everything. If you'd like to check it out for yourself, you can find the details in the description. There are 1 or 2 copycat servers out there, but only one official, so make sure you join the right one. Just be prepared for a queue. Thank you for watching. Please show your support by leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, and joining me over on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and my Steam group. I shall catch you all soon, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio.